Have you ever had a sex injury? If so, what happened? Story 1. Not an injury per se, but we had to stop and I had to run to the shower immediately. We had both been drinking and decided to move it to the bedroom. I was on top. We were both super into it, and I grabbed a bottle of whiskey and took a big swig straight from the bottle. He thought it was hot and decided that he wanted to do a shot off my body while I rode him. He poured whiskey down my chest and was licking it off. He missed some and it continued down. I was really into what was happening, so it took a second for the pain to register. Holy shit, that burned. I hopped off him, explaining that I felt like I had been set on fire, and I ran to the shower to hose it off. Lesson learned: whiskey does not belong anywhere near sex. Story 2. It was after the bar and a pretty aggressive makeout session. Something felt weird, so I excused myself to the restroom. I looked in the mirror and saw that her hoop earring had impaled my cheek and was just dangling off the side of my face. I pulled it out, swabbed some rubbing alcohol on it, and got back to business. It was super weird because there was literally no pain at all. Like it must have missed every single nerve ending. Good on you for not giving up. Hashtag perseverance. Never back down, never what? If you're liking the video so far, make sure to subscribe. It goes a long way towards the building of my channel, and it only takes a second. Story 3. The story of me losing my virginity was my girlfriend at the time had an ovarian cyst rupture, causing life-threatening amounts of internal bleeding. She had to go to the ER, have emergency surgery, and spent a week in the hospital. And that is how both of our parents found out that we had sex. This happened to me. I was a teen, not how my mom found out, but had emergency surgery from a cyst bursting during sex, and woke up to the doctor telling me if I waited 2 more hours, I would have died. I ignored it for the first couple of hours, thinking that the pain would go away. I have an 8-inch scar now. Story 4. A broken nose. Blood everywhere. Not even rough sex. Just tried to pull a smooth flipper on top move, and she accidentally headbutted me. For some reason, this reminds me of one morning when my ex and I were both half asleep. I drew up my leg and felt my leg hit him, and it felt like it was in the groin area. Apparently it wasn't, but right at that exact moment, he got hit with a really bad leg cramp. This was a fairly common occurrence for him, so he's cringing and making sounds of distress, so naturally I thought I had nailed him in the nads. So, I'm apologizing like crazy. Between gritted teeth, he says, rub it, and so I did. Hilarity ensued, which was something of a quick cure for that leg cramp. Story 5. I have 2 stories. Number 1. Pretty standard. I bent the pole pretty bad between thrusts. Story 2. A pretty rare one. During a BJ, I got a transient global amnesia, which caused me to lose the previous 48 hours. It can be triggered by an orgasm, and it was scary AF. I forgot how I got there, where I was going, and who I was meeting. I remembered my name, address, and family, but had no idea what day of the week it was. It all came back 24 hours later, with the exception of a 20-minute period. Story 6. To preface, I work at a healthcare clinic in a small town, and know all the doctors. I honestly don't even remember exactly how the injury happened, except that it was during some of the best sex of my life with my boyfriend at the time. It was very physical, very enthusiastic, and I ended up unable to breathe well. I felt like one of my ribs was dislocated and jammed into my lung. I hoped that it would resolve itself, but after 2 days I couldn't take it anymore and went to our walk-in clinic for osteopathic manipulation, which is sort of like chiropractic care, but way better. So, I get in there, and of course it's one of the doctors that I know really well, but who is very reserved, and he does not at all take part in inappropriate workplace humor. I groan to myself. He asked what's wrong, I get on the table, and he asks what's happened. While I'm hemming and hawing, he looks at me and says that there are bruises in the shape of a hand on me. He asks if I'm safe and if anybody is hurting me, and I blurt, yeah, but I like it. I mean, it's consensual. It's a sex injury. Then there was just awkward silence, and I avoided him for about 6 months after that. Story 7. My ex was riding me and bent my unit in half to the point where I screamed and rolled over. The next day she showed up with an ice cream cake saying, sorry I broke your dick, written on it. She said the guy at Dairy Queen lost his shit while writing it. Your girlfriend was a real one. Story 8. Many years ago, I was out in the woods, laying on the ground naked and getting a BJ. What I didn't realize at the beginning was that I was apparently very close to a fire ant bed. They were quite literally tearing my ass and everything else up, but I was getting some, and I wasn't keen on having her stop. After about 5 minutes of pure torture, I couldn't take it anymore and told her she had to quit. That was almost 30 years ago, and I've never forgotten that incomplete blowjob, and always regretted not being able to hold out for just a little bit longer. This is one of the reasons the woods aren't a good place to do stuff. I don't know how our ancestors did it. They would just clear off the ground. Dirt floors can actually be fairly insect-free if done correctly. Just a little random bit of survival knowledge. Story 9. My partner and I have had what we have now dubbed the jalapenos incident. He chopped up and de-seeded a bunch of jalapenos from the garden with no gloves on. Soon after, and in a moment of thoughtlessness, he went into the bathroom and got all that jalapeno oil from his hands onto his junk. He did his best to wash it off, but oils can absorb. Hours later, we were getting down to business, and I just thought that there was no way I could incur third-degree transfer jalapeno wrath. But sure enough, after a few minutes of going at it, my vagina started to burn. We stuck it out, though, and we both finished in flaming glory. Story 10. We were going at it like two rabbits, unprotected and horny as ever, when I suddenly felt a weird sensation down there. I pulled out and saw blood, so I assumed that she was on her period. I asked her, but already started feeling a weird sting in my little champ. I decided to get up and wash it off. You know, not having blood dripping from my wiener, dangling and all. Well, that's when the pain started. As soon as the water hit my little fella, I felt a sting like no other. I collapsed in the shower and was just laying there like a sad, hairy shrimp until I could muster the power to get up again. I was panicky, scared, and just needed to get home where I felt safe. So I packed my things, kissed her goodbye, and waddled out to my motorcycle and drove home slowly. Now for the aftermath. Turns out, my foreskin had ripped open. I had an open gazing wound, which is not fun. Like, my worst was a purple man. After 2 days in pain, I went to the doctor's office. They saw the wound and thought, oh no, he has syphilis, and needed a tissue sample. How do you get a tissue sample, you ask? You scrape off the clotted blood on the wound, and then you get some fresh, I don't even know, from the wound. I think I would break the poor nurse's hand, but she took it. I just clenched everything, found my happy place, and cried like the man I am while this took place. Luckily, no syphilis. I did have chlamydia, though. Oh, and little dude, today I have a scar on my foreskin, and it feels slightly tight during erection. I have considered circumcision, but I'm not fond of mauling my pimp shrimp like that. Hope you guys enjoyed my little story. Story 11. I didn't quite dislocate my jaw, but I set it off track, sucking a big one while very drunk. The right side of my face looked odd for years. I could barely open my mouth, and it hurt on the right side, and it clicked a lot and locked open sometimes. One day while driving, I stopped at a red light and dropped the cap to my water bottle on the floor. I reached down to get it, and when I did, my foot let off the brake very slightly. This caused me to panic and stomp the brake while my head was still cocked to the side looking for the cap. The left side of my jaw tapped the steering wheel pretty hard. I thought, oh fuck, I just fucked my jaw up. But no, I could fully open my mouth. No clicking and no more pain. And my teeth lined up. My face looked symmetrical. Sex injury solved. Thanks, series of weird events that lined up perfectly somehow. These stories were hilarious to read. But what do y'all think? Do you have any stories that you'd like to share? Leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Chino, signing off.